first major change is in the interpretations and data tabs. The tree structure has changed slightly. You'll see that we've lost bed attitude and fracture attitude, etc. And now we've got orientation. And also the plunge section is missing. That's now become part of orientations. Polylines has changed to Polyline New. That will change back to just Polyline in the near future. And geobodies have changed to geopolygons. So the geopolygon is the same as the geobody was. The geobodies will return in a new form in a subsequent release. The major difference in the tree structures is that we can now group and ungroup items and have hierarchies. So let's have a quick look at that. I'm going to draw a few polylines and just do them fairly quickly. I'm using the Alt-P shortcut to make polyline drawing quicker. So here are 4 new polylines, and they've appeared in our interpretation tree just here. If I want to group them, simply select multiple ones, hold down the Shift key and select group. And now we have our polylines in a separate group. If we right click on the group and click go to, it takes us to an overall view of the polyline group, or we can go to our individual polylines. Like so. If, like in this case, we don't have a name for the group, we can simply go and add a group here, add a group name. And there we go. And if we have lots of polylines, we can group them into subgroups and then add further subgroups into those. We can do exactly the same thing with our orientations. So here I'm going to select out bedding, then fractures. You can use the control key to select individual objects, and here we can change the type of this to set as fracture, and we could change this to fracture group. And if we wanted to separate this out into sets, we could again do separate groups for the different sets. So that's available in interpretations for orientations, polylines, faults, and geobodies, and is also available in the data tree. So you can organize your point clouds. So an example here is we have a lot of point clouds which you can then group into a single object, and that will get attached and move down to the end of the group there. So it's a good way of organizing your data. Right, another change to the polyline interpretations is if we now go to our polylines and switch on show nodes, as you're interpreting, you can now snap to existing interpretations. So how that would work is if I were to put a line like this, and I'm clicking on the vertices of existing interpretations, double click to finish, and you can see that on the new polyline and on the old polylines, that vertex that is common to the two, in this case 2 polylines, has turned red. If I then put another interpretation in, so I'll just put one across here, same sort of approach, just some random polylines just to demonstrate the effect. Here you can see that these vertices are common to 2 polylines, they turn red. If it's common to more than 2 polylines, it will turn green. So that allows us to maintain information about how our different interpretations are connected to one another. So that would be particularly useful if you were working on faults and fractures. The next new feature is in the edit tools. So we have move vertices, which is the same as before. And now it retains a track of where you've moved the vertex. And there is Control Z allows you to undo and retrack back. There's also a new version of the vertex editor, which is this 3D translator. So now we can select a vertex and we get this translator appear. And here we can start to move the vertex along different axes. So there's the horizontal axis as well. And again, Control Z will allow us to take us back just to the last start of movement at the moment. So we can move vertices like that. We can also snap that one back onto the outcrop. And that's the vertex editor. There's a paleocurrent tool now, so we can add individual paleocurrents in here. So we can give a sedimentary structure name and say we want it dipping to, paleocurrent towards, we can just choose an arbitrary direction here, and in our interpretation tab, paleocurrents appear there, and there's our new paleocurrent measurement. You can add multiple paleocurrents into a single point. So here we've got our paleocurrents list. I can just do add paleocurrent a couple of times, redisplay the properties, but we can do there we go. So I've added in several paleocurrents in there. So the other change in this version is the way in which the data is saved. So if we just have a quick look at the project directory, so this is the VGP file and the data directory that goes along with it. If I go into the data directory, there's a subdirectory called databases, and in here you'll find a file called sqldb version4.db. That is the database file, so that's quite an important one to back up if you need to. Another thing that's in the project directory is the VGP backup directory. And if you look in here, every time you save the project, a copy of the previous version of the project is moved into the backup directory. This has been in VRGS for quite a while, but not many people are aware of it. So if you get something go wrong with your VGP file, you can always recover an earlier version of the project file from here. If you want to be able to look at the database itself, there's a variety of tools that you can use. I'm going to use this one here. It's called DB Browser for SQLite, so it's an embedded SQLite database that we're using now. And I can open up the database and just view the contents of it. So here are the different tables that we've that I've currently defined for the VRGS project, and we can look at the data. So in there is the different objects that we have defined in this particular model. So for most of the time you won't need to know about the database, but it could be a useful addition if you want to do some extra queries. You can run SQL commands on this and extract data in different ways that you might not be able to through the software directly. So those are the main new features in this version. There are a lot of other updates and a lot of sort of internal changes that are focused on some future developments.